I'm stopping strength training as I'm prepping for my first full distance Ironman, and it's probably not for the reason that you think. Now, the problem that I see is a lot of hybrid athletes at the moment that you see online still want to continue to push their strength, their endurance, their work, their family, and their recovery all at the same time, which sounds good, but something nearly always breaks, and it's definitely something that I kind of experienced myself. So I wanted to share today in this video why I'm stepping back from strength training, what changes I'm making, what I think most people get wrong when it comes to balancing strength with endurance, and then the main question of how do you know if you should stop, and what are some of the questions that you may want to ask yourself. For those that don't know me, my name is Rob, and I'm what I like to call a multi-sport athlete. I like to dip my toe into everything and try to do as much as I possibly can, pretty much until I physically can't anymore. And along that journey, I make many mistakes and I also get some big wins. So I like to share this journey with you. Now, over the past 15 years, I'd say I've been dabbling in everything, trying to balance it all, and I've done a pretty good job along the way. And at my last powerlifting competition, I hit some lifetime PBs of a 275 kilo back squat, a 170 kilo bench press, and a 302.5 kilo deadlift. And for me, this was the moment where I knew I was going to transition more triathlon and give it a proper crack. Because over the years, I've been balancing both strength training with triathlon, probably since about 2018, but I've never really given it my all. So this year, I've gone all in on triathlon. I'm seeing what challenges I'm coming up against, and I want to share them with you. And one of the biggest challenges is actually strength training, because that is a huge part of my identity. And having to step back is a very big ask, and it's something which I'm struggling with, but I understand why. So today's video, we're going to break all that down, and then we're going to see if you also may want to think about reducing your strength training or keeping it. So at the start of my Ironman build, I was still strength training 2 to 3 times a week, feeling pretty good. But as my Ironman training started to increase, I started to realize that I wasn't recovering as well as I could, and that meant it was impacting my Ironman training. Now, if I wasn't necessarily trying to hit a specific time in a race or anything like that, and I'm just dabbling with the 3 sports of triathlon and then some strength training, this wouldn't matter. But I have some big goals I want to achieve within triathlon, and it means I need to put a good bit of focus into that. I had to ask myself, what is my A goal? What do I really want? Do I just want to keep as much strength as possible while I'm trying to then get as fit as possible? Or am I willing to sacrifice some strength and really get as fit as possible and put all my eggs into that basket? And as I said at the start, I'd already kind of made that decision at my last powerlifting competition that I don't mind taking a little bit of a step back for a while I give myself a good bit of focus into the world of ultra endurance. Now, because I was noticing my Ironman sessions were starting to get impacted by sessions that I was doing in the gym, I then had to make that call where, do I just want to complete the full distance Ironman, or do I actually want to perform at my best? Now, I want to race it, so leaning more towards that second option. Now, what changes am I making to my training week? So when I started to realize how limited my time was becoming when I was trying to balance work, family life, Ironman training, strength training, and trying to recover in between everything, I realized something had to give. Now, it couldn't be family and it couldn't be work, and the Ironman was my main focus, so I knew that the strength training had to be the thing that kind of had to take a bit of a back burner. Because as my hours of Ironman training started to increase, I had to essentially take the hour of strength training, get rid of that, and swap it for a more specific Ironman session, whether that was more time on the bike, getting in the pool, or going out for a run. So it's not even that I started to train less, it's just I had to start to prioritize what do I actually want to do throughout my week, and is what I'm doing getting me closer towards the goal that I want to achieve. Obviously, in the ideal world, I'd be able to still get all my strength training in, I'd get all my Ironman sessions in, I'd be able to prep all my food consistently, I'd be able to spend quality time with the family and not feel really beat up all the time, I'd be able to recover from all my sessions, work all the hours, but realistically, something had to give. And as I said, with the Ironman hours starting to increase, my diary just had to kind of manipulate to account for those hours. So it just meant I didn't have any spare hours to give to strength training. So it wasn't that I'm not necessarily disciplined, it's just the reality that the total load going through my body and being able to recover with all my other life stresses, something had to give. Now, as a slight little caveat here, I am still including one strength session a week. And that is on a Monday in the middle of the day, because when I'm at work, I'm with the team and I'm getting a good session in there. So what I'm prioritizing is a nice upper body session, because that's far enough away from my swim for it to not impact. So my recovery, by the time I get to Thursday, I'm fully recovered in the upper body, and it then doesn't impact my swim quality either. So how does my week now look? On Mondays and Thursdays, I double train. They're the only days that I double train, and I have Sundays off. So Mondays, I start out at the moment with a hard run in the morning, so that'll be my intervals, and then I have my upper body lifting session around lunchtime. Tuesdays, I then have a hard interval bike. Wednesdays, I'm currently having a long bike session, so that's just getting some time in the saddle. Thursdays are then my easy run and a swim. Fridays, I'm often doing a hard bike again, so more like sweet spot hard, so going in that sub-threshold area, and I'm normally pairing that with a 20-minute run off the bike, and then Saturday is my long run. And then Sundays are my complete rest day. And on that day, I go to church, I spend time with the family, and I allow my body to essentially fully recover, and I get myself fully fed and ready for another full week of training ahead. Now, what I feel most people get wrong with balancing strength and endurance, and this is coming from personal experience, from either doing it myself or working with clients who are balancing strength and endurance within their own lives. I think the biggest thing that I found is we try to max everything at once, and we try to be as strong as we can, and we try to be as fit as we can. And for the most of us, it's just not possible, especially if we have other life commitments, whether that's work or family. Those commitments are most likely going to take precedent over training. So you then have to ask yourself, cool, am I able to recover from working as hard as I possibly can in the gym? And then am I able to recover as well as I can working as hard as I can in my endurance training? And then am I not just, tired all day when I'm with the family or at work? Because those two things do need to have your full focus. So we can't just let those things go by the wayside when we're trying to just get fit and strong. But that is obviously individual dependent. Some people can set their lives up appropriately, but if you have tried that and you've experienced essentially that form of burnout of trying to do it all, you realize maybe there's another way of doing it, and maybe I have to think about not maxing out my strength and maxing out my fitness at the same time. I've also found, especially for myself, it's easy to think doing more is what we need, where sometimes it's actually doing less better. And that's what I was finding when I was doing my double days. I started to do double days throughout most of the week, but I was finding then everything was kind of at 80% rather than me giving 100% in the sessions that really mattered. And that was when I had to make that call of kind of reducing the strength training, because it was just impacting my key sessions for the Ironman prep. And I think one of the biggest things when it comes to what I believe most people get wrong, and also I definitely feel myself, is we have our identity attached to, say, strength training. So we can't kind of step back because we're that strong guy or strong girl, and that's who we are. So, and we also want to be fit, but we have to try to think about maintaining this strength, and just it's not always going to be possible. Sometimes for some people they can, but if you really want to work hard at one thing in particular and achieve that one thing, you have to weigh up, is everything that you're doing here contributing to this, or is it actually going to be taken away? And that's kind of the summary where I got to when it comes to my strength training and the triathlon training. So the big question is, should you stop strength training? Now, obviously I don't know your particular situation, and with myself, I feel that I put the years into strength training where I can take a bit of a hiatus and know that I can come back after I've finished with this Ironman prep. I put 15 consistent years in trying to be as strong as I can across the board on most things. So to step back for, say, a year and kind of give my body the opportunity to actually get fitter isn't necessarily a problem, because when I come back, I'm not going to be starting from scratch. I've already built a fair amount of muscle. I've built a lot of strength over the years. So stepping back for the year and giving my focus to something else for a while isn't necessarily going to be the biggest cost to my overall journey. However, with yourself, if you haven't had that much time in the gym, you might want to still incorporate more strength training, because it's also ideal to include strength training as part of your triathlon training for injury resistance, just being able to then perform better for longer when it does come to your races. Because if you're weak and you're tired and you're on your run leg of the triathlon, you're just going to break down, your body's going to fall apart, you're going to have no actual technique, and because your body's just too fatigued. Whereas I feel if you've put some time into the gym itself and you've created a really strong foundation, it means you've got a big base to work from. So even if that base starts to shrink, we're starting out with a bigger one. So rather than if you've just started strength training and now you're trying to add in your triathlon training, you're going to notice you're going to suddenly get back to zero quite quickly if you haven't got those years in the gym. Now, if you're still not sure whether you should stop strength training while you're prepping for a triathlon, these are a couple of telltale signs that you might want to look out for. Are your key triathlon sessions suffering? Are you not recovering between sessions well enough? Are you starting to resent lifting weights or even getting on the bike or going for a run? Are you going through a stressful period at work right now? Or maybe family life is pretty intense at the moment. So we have to ask ourselves those questions, and we have to ask, are we still lifting because it's our identity and we're worried that we're not going to be the same person because we don't lift? Or are we happy with this change in identity and maybe leaning into a different area and giving yourself some time to focus on another challenge? If triathlon training is already pushing our limits in terms of time that we have available and recovery, strength training is going to have to kind of earn the right to be in there, and we're going to have to make sure that we have the ability to recover from those sessions. So to zoom out and kind of give you 3 practical questions that you can kind of ask yourself to kind of see what your next step should be. Should be 1, what is your A goal that you're working towards at the moment? What type of training gives me the biggest return for that A goal? And 3, how much work can I recover from consistently? Because training in general is about consistency. How much can you keep showing up? If you keep burning out and not being able to do your sessions or keep missing sessions, it means you're just doing too much. So to kind of wrap this up, no, I'm not necessarily walking away from strength training altogether. I'm just recognizing that at the moment, I'm in a different phase of life where I haven't got the capacity to include as much strength training as I want alongside the Ironman training that I really want to work as hard as I can for. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a fun journey on the rebuild after the race. And going into the race, I want to make sure that I've given it everything that I can to make sure I can perform at the best that I can. And this is my season where I want to see what happens when I don't split my priorities and I give all my focus to one thing and see what I can do. So stick along for the journey and we'll see if this all pays off. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.